Dr. Yip, it's such an honor and a pleasure to have you today. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Based on your vast experience in international business and more specifically your endeavors in China, what I was really tempted to ask you is the Chinese institutional environment is growing, means it's still, the institutions have not fully developed, they are in the process of maturing. That has left a lot of space for IP violations, intellectual property rights and issues, and a lot of companies are rightfully concerned. What impact this has on Chinese companies, multinationals and SOEs there?
Well, for the last 3 years, I've been co-directing a research center on innovation in China at China-Europe International Business School, based in Shanghai. So I've been really looking at these topics. And in fact, all companies face a dilemma because indeed the intellectual property rights system is not well developed and enforcement is very variable. So if we look first of all at Western companies, they face the dilemma of, do we do innovation in China? If so, do we risk losing some of the intellectual property? But because of the size of the market, most companies are saying, we will do innovation in China. The more conservative play is to do adaptation of the products just for the Chinese markets, so not fundamental innovation.
Okay.
And they've been doing that now for the last 20 years, but initially it was adaptation to be able to produce at all. Then the second phase was sort of market-led adaptation to make the kinds of products that Chinese consumers want more. Mm-hmm. But now there's a third stage because of the very large numbers of Chinese scientists and engineers at lower cost, and by the drive by the Chinese government also to build up scientific and technological innovation in China. Okay. There is now the opportunity to do state-of-the-art technology-based innovation in China, and some companies are embracing it. So Microsoft, for example, okay, has really done this. Many of the pharmaceutical companies are doing this. Others are a bit more reluctant, but there are strategies for dealing with the IPR issues. For example, you could split up what you're doing so that you don't do all the development in one place. Okay. You might even put it together back home, but you've sort of broken up the different parts in China. You obviously need strong contracts with the employees. Keep the employees happy so that they okay, stay with you is another approach as well. On the other side, Chinese companies are now, the big ones are developing their own intellectual property. So they're pressurizing the government to enforce intellectual property rights more.
Right. So in terms of the specifically multinationals, Western multinationals or multinationals from emerging markets, etc., what challenge do you see in terms of them protecting their intellectual property in China?
Well, as I said, the challenge is that they can't always protect it. So they have to change their product designs quickly, stay ahead of the copiers. Second strategy is to sell systems rather than products. So systems are rather hard to imitate. But the Chinese counterfeiters go quite far. For example, they counterfeit entire Apple and IKEA stores. So it's not just the products sold, it's not just fake Apple products, there are fake Apple stores.
Is that true?
Yeah.
Wow. So even if a company is able to break up its value chain and create some value-added services in China and some other places which will actually modularize it, still you say there is a threat of IP loss in China. So what do you think the Chinese government is doing to reassure companies?
Well, no, the Chinese government is paying more attention, but the big issue is enforcement. So the Chinese are gradually strengthening the court system. You have to remember that the judges report to the party. So really the party can influence their behavior directly. But you also have to remember that the central government, despite outward appearances, is not all powerful. So they have to deal with local governments, and then the local governments have faced pressures from the local companies. So, local companies with connections to local governments, they may be violating IP, and then it's quite hard for the central government to put pressure on the local courts and the local governments to stop.
That is interesting. And actually, my last question really is that now from the consumer perspective, the Chinese consumer perspective, is the Chinese consumer perceptive enough of these, I would say, lack of the word, fake products or fake stores you mentioned, or are they willing to accept it and
No, Chinese consumers are quite aware of it. And in fact, many consumers now have a dual brand personal strategy. They'll buy the real thing, the real Louis Vuitton handbag,
Right.
and use that for, perhaps formal occasions. And then they'll buy the fake one for everyday use.
Okay.
Actually, this started in Japan, and now the Chinese are starting to imitate this practice as well. So they do indeed know that.
Okay. And just, I can't resist asking you this, but since your experience in international business and consumers in China too, do you see the rise of premium brands there in China? You probably do.
Chinese brands.
Chinese brands.
Yes, I mean, not yet. Although Haier, the white goods company,
Right.
has launched a premium brand with a completely different name, Casate, Casarte, that sounds Italian, and that's its premium brand. And in fact, to differentiate themselves, they've put Swarovski crystals on the fronts of the cabinets.
So Chinese companies are also entering that premium market.
Yeah, they're trying to.
Great. Well, thank you, Dr. Yip, for taking this time. Very
Okay.
insightful.
Thank you, Nitish.
Thank you.